Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful episode of the most entertaining podcast. I'll be your host for this episode, Bari. It's a pleasure to be on TME podcast. My first appearance in the year 2026, so it's a pleasure to be here. I'm not going to be doing the show alone. Obviously, as you can see, I've got a TME regular in Toby, and I've
Yo,
got a TME debutant in Dapo. First of all, Happy New Year to the both of you. And how are you guys doing? Toby?
I'm good. Thank you. Happy New Year. Good to be back and good to be on this episode with Dapo. Welcome, bro.
I'm good
Sweet.
as well, man. Thank you, guys. I'm good. I'm happy to be on the podcast as well. My first day, obviously, and yeah, I'm looking forward to just talking about the game of football.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet, 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 sweet. A big shout out to all our listeners and everyone who engages our content. Thank you for subscribing. If you're yet to do that, you should probably do that at this point in time. And yeah, thank you for engaging us thus far. On today's episode, we'll be ranking the top 10 most expensive signings from January 2025 and basically ranking them based on how they've impacted their teams thus far and how they've done, based off their price tags from January 2025. But before we get into that, let's talk about TME Game of the Week. For last week, we had the game between Hamburg and Werder Bremen, where we had, excuse me, we had the Spurs centre back that was on loan, Vukcevic. He scored a fantastic goal in the game. And yeah, Lagesh, we had the Arsenal loanees in Fabio Vieira and Lokonga, making an impact in that game as well. It was a blockbuster, that one. You could check it out in our last episode. You see the link in the description. Now to this week's game of the week. It was the nine-goal thriller between Manchester City and Fulham in the English Premier League. I remember that we had Samuel Chukwueze come up from the bench to score two late goals in that game. Alex Iwobi obviously started the resurgence for Fulham in that game, and I think basically that game was just an example of how topsy turvy Manchester City has been since Rodri had that injury last season. So yeah, you find the link in the description below on this video. So before we get into today's content, let me just remind both Toby and Dapo that you'll be speaking intermittently, and we wouldn't want one or the other speaking over the other person, right? So before we get into it, let me list out the most expensive players from January 2025 in no particular order, by the way. So it's up to Dapo and Toby to rank them based on how they've impacted their new teams. So we had Jean Duran, who left Aston Villa to move to Al Nassr. I believe now he's currently on loan at Fenerbahce. We had Umar Mamouche, obviously from Eintracht Frankfurt to Manchester City, currently at AFCON with Egypt. We have Nico Gonzalez, who moved from FC Porto to Manchester City as well. We had Abdulkadir Kuzanov. Excuse me, he moved from Lens to Manchester City, and we also had Victor Reis, who got loaned. He was signed actually from Palmeiras. That's how he joined Manchester City. But I believe he's currently on loan at Girona in La Liga. And then we've got Patrick Dogu, who joined Manchester United. Yeah, from Lecce as well in the Serie A. And then Daniel Malen, who joined Aston Villa from Borussia Dortmund. Jaden Philogene, who joined Ipswich from Aston Villa. And we have Emmanuel Agbadu, who joined Wolverhampton Wanderers from Rem. And finally, we have Marshall Munetsi, who joined Wolverhampton Wanderers as well from Rem, same club. So uh, the ball is now in the court of Toby and Dapo. So we'll be starting from number 10. So maybe the least impactful to the most impactful signing. So we're starting from number 10 and we'll work our way up to number one. So who is your 10th ranked most expensive signing from January 2025? Toby?
For me, number 10 was Marshall Monetsi from Reims to Wolves for 16 million. Marshall Monetsi is a midfielder. Overall, obviously, one thing that I did notice when I was going through the list was, Wolves featured a lot in January of last year. Villa featured a lot in January last year, as well as Man City, in terms of teams that were doing a lot of transfers. Obviously those teams are in different positions and have different needs. Obviously you could tell for Man City it was a rebuild kind of season, and they were trying to still see if they could challenge or at least push for a top four or maybe an even better finish. So that's why they were able to invest heavily in players higher up. Villa, I think for them was more of a PSR kind of thing, managing the books, making sure that they were PSR compliant for that year as well as subsequent years. So I think, for Villa, they probably didn't want to do all these deals they got involved in. Whereas Wolves, Wolves has always been a team for the last couple seasons fighting relegation. Right now, it seems like they might be on their way down, and it's become too much for them. But Munetsi was a deal to be able to make it work. I think one issue that Wolves has had over the course of the last couple of years has been the fact that they've done a lot of agent led deals. Before it was a lot of
Mm,
there's kind of deals they would do a lot of Portuguese players coming to Wolves. That was their identity for some time. With the guys like Neto. I'm forgetting the other dude. I think is Neves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Neves as well, who's currently in Saudi. But that was
Hugo
a lot of
Neves,
things for
yeah.
Wolves. Yeah. So
Mm,
right now, these two deals where they have two players coming from Rams to Wolves, again, looks to me like a lot of agent led kind of a situation. Right now, Munetsi is
mm,
pretty average for Wolves. Wolves are not doing much. If I was to grade the transfer um up from an A to an F, I am gonna give Marshall Munetsi a D, just because they weren't able to accomplish the goal, which I think was to be able to. Well, actually, no. Let me change my mind. For that season, the goal was to stay in the league, and they did accomplish that
mm,
goal. But obviously now
mm.
it's not working so well. So I'm not gonna do a D. I'm gonna do a C for number 10, Marshall Munetsi. Dapo, what's your grade?
Well, I'm probably going to grade him a D as well, just because I don't think he's made a significant impact since he's joined. I mean, he probably helped them stay in the league, but this season he's not been a regular starter in their side. He's
Mm,
been coming off the bench. I think he's had games where he will probably play 90 minutes or maybe 80 minutes, get subbed out. He would do well, don't get me wrong. I just think he the club right now is in a very, very poor position because obviously they're last place in the league. They've been struggling to get wins. They've just been getting by. So it's kind of hard for him to even make his own mark. But I just think um from when they signed him to now, I would give him a D just because I mean he played a part in helping them stay up in the league, and right now he's doing as much as he can. But right now, the club right now is obviously not in the best position. So yeah, I'll give him a D, but he's also my 10th player as well.
alrighty. I think there's a consensus regarding that for me as well because, you know, the way Wolverhampton Wanderers have performed from last year till now, excuse me, it's very difficult for any player to basically leave their mark on the team because collectively they just seem to be getting worse week in, week out. But I don't know, so far so good in 2026. I think just what 2 or 3 games in, they seem to be decent. They won their first game of the year. They won the second game yesterday in the FA Cup. So they are gathering momentum slowly. But speaking about Munetsi, I think he has done his best based on the type of player he is. Honestly, I think he's been doing the best that he can be doing for a player at that level. So yeah, I do agree with you guys when you rank him a D. So now to number 9, Emmanuel Agbadu.
You know what? I actually kind of like Agbadu. I'm not going to be incorrect when I say he's probably of Nigerian descent, right? I think Emmanuel Agbadu is probably Nigerian. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I
I'll
think
check
I
that
like.
out.
Yeah,
He might
right.
be
It'll be
Nigerian.
crazy if I'm misspeaking, but
I think
I
he's
thought
from Cote d'Ivoire, sorry, Ivory Coast.
Agbadu.
Ivory
Well, my
Yeah,
Nigerian
you're
or
correct.
my
That was correct. Yeah, he's Ivorian.
Mm-hmm.
thank God. Now, at least we have a fact checker here, somebody that goes with the facts. That's not a speculator like me. But yeah, Agbadu, right? He's definitely a unit, a super physical player. In the game, Arsenal Wolves, I feel like about a month ago, he was one of the best players on the pitch for Wolves. I think he definitely was not afraid of the challenge and was willing to go into it. So me personally,
Mm,
from that one game that I saw him versus Arsenal, and also did not have a good time. I think Wolves have been unlucky. I think obviously they're suffering because they do not have the talent. in front of the pitch to score the goals and create the chances. But in most of their games that I've seen recently, a lot of against top teams in the league, in the Premier League, um, Wolves have been able to hang at least maybe for the first half. Then second half they fall off due to lack of quality or lack of ability to like put the ball in the back of the net. So for me,
Mm,
right, I think obviously the defenders, guys like Agbadu, are suffering as a consequence of all of that. But overall, in terms of my ranking for him personally, I will probably give him a C. He definitely features. He's more important to Wolves and what they're trying to do than Munetsi. I think Munetsi is a good, central midfielder. He does what he needs to do. He's very active on the pitch, a lot of movement, a lot of kilometers. But I think Aguadu is really that still in their defense.
mm,
Unfortunately, like since they lost Max Kilman, Wolves has defense has been going worse year on year. So I think Agbado has been able to do a good job for them this past season. But overall, the team is not being fantastic. I'll probably give him a C as well.
mm. Dapo.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give Agbado a C as well. He's one of those players that does their job, but because
Mm,
of the side that they're in, it's not really that much you can get from him because he's going to be playing against teams that are going to dominate him in
mm,
games. So I'll say I'm going to give him a C as well, but I definitely do think he plays more of a role than Munetsi in Wolves because he plays more games. He's more of a starter for them. I mean, for Ivory Coast in the AFCON, he's not really been starting as much, but he's still a pretty decent player. I think that was a pretty decent buy for 16 million. So yeah, I think I'm going to give him a C as well.
mm. All right then.
Yeah.
You heard it right here on the TME podcast. We graded Emmanuel Agbadu with a C. Decent impact in Wolverhampton Wanderers, but obviously the team results don't complement him the most. But definitely, he's one player that you know that makes an impact in games. I think his greatest strength is probably man marking. So he's one person who doesn't shy from aerial duels. But where Wolverhampton Wanderers then suffer, is recovery of the second balls, and it's usually a problem for them, and that's one of the reasons why they've suffered a lot, since last season. But hey, it's a new year. Let's see if fortunes turn in the favor of Wolverhampton Wanderers. Number 8, Jaden Philogene. He moved from Villa less than 6 months after joining them, and he moved to Ipswich Town, who then got relegated. Toby?
Yeah, actually, when Philogene started playing for Villa, I kind of put it. One thing I've liked about Villa recently is just their interest in kind of giving people an opportunity, especially midfielders. Morgan Rogers coming from Man City to
Middlesbrough.
them.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people knew Morgan Rogers was a top talent in terms of like
Mm,
under 23s, under 21s, but they gave him
mm,
the reins. They had guys like Philogene from their academy who was also good. They added other dudes like I think his name is Bogard, who plays in center midfield and right back as well. And I'm forgetting
mm,
another midfielder that they got in the last couple of years who are supposed to be like creative midfielders. They kind of do the number 10 thing. They kind of go out
mm,
wide as well, but can do a job for the team. So I like Aston Villa in terms of identifying talent for players that can play in between the lines, good offensively, good defensively, can man mark, can basically go forward and back. I think Aston Villa has done a good job to identify those kind of talents, and I'm sure Unai Emery has a big part to play. But obviously, because of Villa's ambitions and where they want to be in the league, currently they're third place, which is definitely surpassing people's expectations for them this season for sure. They're doing a fantastic job, Aston Villa and Unai Emery. But Philogene, this looks to me to be a kind of move of somebody who wants to play, somebody who wants to get minutes, and somebody who wants to probably kickstart his career with the hope of being able to come back. I think the move from Villa to Ipswich was supposed to accomplish all those things for him. Currently, Ipswich aren't in the top two, so it's going to be a bit difficult for them to make it back to the Premier League from the Championship.
mm,
But I know that they're definitely gonna, do a good fight for it. They have a good setup and they have the experience of coming to the Prem, so I think they'll be able to make their way back. Will Philogene be part of the team making it back? That remains to be seen. In terms of what the goals were for Ipswich last season, they wanted to stay in the league. They did not stay in the league. But Philogene is doing well for himself in the championship. He's had a number
mm,
of goals and assists already, so he's able to contribute for the team. But again, that is the championship. For 20 million, I think it's a good deal money wise. I think it's a good deal for the player's career in terms of what Ipswich wanted. not so much. I'm gonna go with a C as well for Jaden Philogene.
All right then, Dapo.
Okay, so for me as well, I'm going to go with a C for Philogene just because I feel like his transfer from Villa to Ipswich Town was needed because he wasn't getting as much game time in Villa. I feel like there were other players that were more in favor than he was. And when he moved to Ipswich Town, I would say he was actually contributing for Ipswich. He was because Ipswich didn't have that many players that were actually giving them consistent games. But Liam Delap, if I'm not wrong, Delap
And
was
maybe Hutchinson as
oh
well.
yeah, Omari
Yeah.
Hutchinson, yeah, and they also had this central midfielder. I can't remember his name, but he was also really good, and I feel like Ipswich were doing they were just doing decent. They were relying on mainly Delap as their main goal scoring outlet, and Delap did what he could, but I feel like he dropped off at some point in the season. He wasn't scoring as much as he was whenever the season started. When they added Philogene, he came in. He added more of a spark to them because down the flanks he was beating his man. He was beating his man. I think he had one or two goals he scored, but in the championship this season, he's been pretty good. I'll say right now Ipswich is like third in the championship. Will they be coming back to the Premier League? There's still a chance for them to do that. So I think Philogene is actually doing pretty well for Ipswich right now. And I think that if they are to come back into the Premier League, he might not be with them. That's just what I think. But honestly, I'm gonna give him a C because I think he's a pretty good player. I think for
Mm,
20 million to Ipswich Town, that's a smart move for him because he gets to play more, definitely. So
mm.
I feel like yeah, C is a pretty decent grade for him.
All
For
right
that.
then. It's a C from both Toby and Dapo, but for me, I actually think Jaden Philogene was quite underwhelming at Ipswich because he did get a good number of minutes in comparison to his time at Villa. Um, but even when he did get appearances at Villa, he wasn't really able to impact the game. You would obviously see flashes of brilliance here and there from him, but I think there's something missing in terms of the quality he gives off in the final third. And I think that
Mhm.
was why it was easy for Villa to let him go. And obviously, a player at that age, he wants to be playing games consistently. He then went to Ipswich, and for me, I think he was quite inconsistent with his performances. That's why he was more or less a rotational player at Ipswich, if we're being honest. And there were other players at Ipswich who were able to impact the game and impact the team. And I think eventually those players got moves away from Ipswich. The players that Dapo mentioned, talking about Liam Delap and Omari Hutchinson. So I do feel that if Philogene maybe performed better, he might still be in the Premier League because everyone can see that quality. So for me, it's a
Mm.
D. But yeah, majority carries the vote. So the consensus is a C for Jaden Philogene from his move from Villa to Ipswich. Number seven now is Donny O'Malley, the man who moved from Borussia Dortmund to Aston Villa. Toby?
So I had a little smile when we got to the Marlon part of the list because Marlon was an Arsenal Academy boy. So whenever Marlon does well, I like to claim Hayland and our
Hmm.
help. Marlon obviously wasn't able to make it to the Arsenal first team, but he was. I feel like he's had a decent career as a professional footballer. The ability to be able to perform at Borussia Dortmund. Maybe he hasn't hit the heights of like Borussia legends of guys like Lewandowski or Marco Reus, but he's definitely going to be a cult hero for like the time he spent there, the goals he's contributed, and the style of play entirely. I find him a very interesting guy to watch. But I think the biggest issue with Daniel Malen is probably his end product in terms of goals and assists. For the cost of about 21.5, I'm very happy with the amount that Villa were able to pay for him. In today's market, any average player goes for 40 million now. So for them to get Daniel Malen at his level in the January window, because typically in January the whole vibe is like, oh, I'm the buying club is kind of desperate. They need a signing to be able to accomplish something for the end of the season, and the selling club is going to be like, you need this guy. Okay, you need to pay a little bit extra so that I can solve that problem for myself when you take this player from me. But in this case, right, Malen, went for around 20M, which is really, really affordable. 20M today was probably 7.5 or 10 million 10 years ago in this sport. So thinking about it like that, it probably wasn't very expensive at all for Villa. Um, but at the end of the day, right now in Villa, is he hitting the heights that they would have liked to see from him? Truth be told, it's a no. They're getting what they paid for, the 20 million, rotation kind of attacker. He's supposed to be helping them in the strike position as well as like the right mid, right wing position. Um, but he's done a lot of minutes towards the beginning of the season when Ollie Watkins wasn't firing as much. But now that Ollie Watkins has started to score goals again for Villa, and Villa are definitely much like, competing really well in the Premier League. He's finding it's somewhat hard to get the minutes that he would love to get, but I still think he's doing well for them. He's doing okay. He's doing okay. Initially, I was going to give him a B, but as I was talking, I was thinking of downgrading his position. But at the end of the day, he's part of the collective. Villa isn't known for having players that are scoring insane amounts of goals and assists. They are definitely much of more of a unit in terms of a team kind of performance. Even Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers, who are supposed to be their talisman, aren't doing, insane numbers. Ollie Watkins did 20 Premier League goals one time, but that's not going to be a consistent expectation for Ollie Watkins. He's probably a 10 to 15 goal kind of striker. And if that's your best player, then Malen probably somewhere along the lines of 5 to 10 goals that we expect from him. So far in 21 Premier League games, he has 4 goals and 2 assists. So it's very, very mid is the word that most people would use to describe that, that production. But I'll still give him a B just because Villa are doing really well. They're currently in the Europa League. I think they're going to try and challenge and win that Europa League. They're very, very well placed. They have a coach who has so much experience in that league. So I think they'll do well there. So this is me projecting based off of how they're going to finish this year in terms of how last year went. Villa didn't finish too well. They were not able to make Champions League, but it was very close for them. So I like Malen. I think he does okay. Yeah. As our producer brought it up, what's his Malen problem? What is he, a striker or a winger? I think, he's somewhere in between. And whenever a player has this problem where you cannot identify a position for them, it always hurts them in the long term because they can't really find their place in the team. They always end up being an option off the bench, an option to solve problems when there's injuries or rotation problems. But yeah, for Marlem, I'll give him a B. I think that's a little bit of my Arsenal bias coming out. I should be a bit more strict with him over everything. But I think the fact that Villa is third right now, he has something to do with that. And I think that's a really big deal for Aston Villa because nobody would have said they will be where they are right now. So for me, Daniel Marlon, I'm going to give him a B. A speculative B.
All right then, a speculative B from Toby. Over to you, DP.
Yeah, for me, honestly, Daniel Malen, am I a fan? I think, yeah, I'm a fan of him because I like his play style. But once again, he doesn't know what position he actually plays. Is he a striker? Is he a winger? You can't really tell from the way he plays. But I definitely don't think he's a striker because he's not as prolific as a striker should be. But I think he can fill in the position in some certain games. But I definitely think he's a winger. And for a winger for Villa, I feel like he should be playing more. Villa don't have that many fast wingers. They play with Morgan Rogers sometimes on the wing. They play with McGinn on the wing sometimes. These guys are not fast. And I feel like as a winger in a team like Aston Villa, you should be playing more because they don't have that many fast wingers and they definitely need that explosive player that's going to, take people on, running behind, score goals. And I just think he's not getting into the side enough for me. So I'm probably going to give him a C. And this is all things being considered as well. Aston Villa, with their position right now, nobody expecting them to be in third position. Nobody really expecting them to play as well as they are right now. Also considering that at the start of the season, they were not scoring any goals and they were barely picking up points as well. But the way they bounced back, I think Marlon has had like his own fair share to play in them coming back as well. Like he's contributed goals. Like Toby was saying, they don't score that many goals. They work together and everybody kind of contributes and chips in for the goals. But Morgan Rogers obviously is their best player. Ollie Watkins, in my opinion, he should be scoring more goals. This is not the Ollie Watkins that we know, but I mean, he's trying. They're trying. So for that Daniel Malin, I'm going to give him a C. Honestly, I feel like it was a good transfer from Dortmund to Villa. I just feel like he should be playing more. Like he should be playing more. And if he was playing more for me, I would give him a B. But yeah, I'm gonna give him a C.
All right then. A B from Toby for Daniel Malen, a C from Dapo for Daniel Malen, and I think for me B minus. And I'll say this
Right
because
there.
me, yeah, I'm in the middle because I genuinely do not think that he has shown enough of his quality. I think he has done just enough. I would use Toby's words in the sense that he has justified the price tag. I think the price tag for him was fair considering today's nature of football.
Yeah.
And for me, from what I've seen from him in his younger days, for sure, I would say he was a winger. But the older he's grown, I think he has become lazy. He doesn't put in as much work rates coming in from the wings. And
Hmm.
I think he's more deadly in the final third in comparison to build up play. Although he does show his quality when it comes to build up, because I see him more involved in build ups when he's playing for the Dutch national team. But then with Villa, um, comfortably enough for him, he always finds himself in good places in the final third, but he's not scoring enough. I think when Oli Watkins had that poor patch of form, I don't think he stepped up in the way that the Villa fans would have probably wanted. But
Yeah.
you just know that he's one player that he's got a decent injury record. He's always going to be available. You know that there's just something he can produce the unthinkable sometimes. He's got a bit of that X factor in him, but he's not just consistent with it. And I don't think he wants it enough, in my own opinion. And yeah, now that
Mm.
I've said all of this, I think it's a C for me. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a C for me for Daniel Malen. I honestly do not think he has done enough. And just like our producer highlighted, I think it's always a problem when a player fails to identify with a particular position. I think that affected Marcus Rashford for a while, and then now he's quite certain that look, it's left wing or nothing for me. I think Daniel Malen probably needs to go through that phase as well. So I think the general consensus for the signing of Daniel Malen would be a C on the TME pod. But
Yeah.
look, the 2026 season is still on. He's still got a good number of games in terms of how it's going to impact Villa. So we'll see how it goes. But now moving over swiftly to number 6, Patrick Dorgu, who joined Manchester United from Lecce. Toby?
I'm pretty sure this was Amarin's first signing, and I think it's just the timing is really crazy. The fact that we get to talk about this right after Amarin has left
Yeah.
United. Of all the time periods when I felt like he could be leaving, it didn't make the timing right now was just so out of place because they finally to see somewhat have good results, somewhat level of stability, climbing up the table, in and around those Champions League, Europa League conversations, which I felt like
Mm,
was a good place for Man United to be and a good place to build off of. But currently, we're in this era of like, who has the power? Is it the owners? Is it the managers? Is it the fans? Is it the players? It seems, regardless of whatever club you're looking at, there's a struggle for power and who gets to own the narrative. And that's why it's so important, like for clubs to have unity from top down, because, like, I don't think Amorim needed to be fired at that stage in time. He's had worse stints. He has had worse periods in his United career, where he could have been more justifiably fired. But because of that lack
mm,
of unity, that lack of togetherness, there's been a breakdown. Same thing with Maresca and Chelsea. There's a lot going on. But Patrick Dorgu, speaking back on him, this is one of the players that somewhere is a consequence of that lack of instability that clubs are going on. When you look at this signing from Lecce to United, it definitely gives us a January signing. Just because I don't think Patrick Dorgu, based off of like what people would have known about him going into that
mm,
January window, if someone told you January 1st of 2025, there's a guy called Patrick Dorgu, Google him and tell me how much you think he would cost in the transfer. Most people wouldn't say 30 million.
mm,
But because it's Man United, they probably needed it. They had that need to solve that problem. Luke Shaw wasn't really working with them. They probably had issues with Mazraoui. Amrabat had already left by then. and they were like, okay, we need more options in the fullback positions. So
Mm.
Dogo was the guy that they looked to. I think overall, most Man United fans will not be in love with the recruitment of Dorgu just because he felt like he was definitely much an unfinished product that they would have to build and basically, get him better. Has been misprofiled, Loki, playing a winger as a wing back. I don't know if our producer is serious or he's trying to tell a joke with us. Just because like Dogu played really well recently, with the absence of Ahmad and Mbuemo. I can't remember what game it was, but that volley that he scored was crazy. So I
That
do
was,
understand.
I
What
think
game was it?
it was Newcastle. Not sure.
It might have been the Newcastle, Man United Newcastle. 'Cause I'm pretty sure United won that game, and
Mm.
Dogo's goal was fantastic. That was a really, really well taken goal. A moment of brilliance from him. And he no trolling, he's a right winger. Hey man, I can honestly say a lot of times fullbacks are usually were previously wingers that some coach said, I don't like you in the wing, we're gonna bring you back and play you in fullback.
True.
But yeah, I felt like Amorim would still be in a job. Well, if he persisted with the four at the back and played Dogu off the wing in some of those games recently. If Dogu played off the wing in some of those games recently where he reverted back to the back five, I believe he would still be in that position. But that was just him being stubborn, not wanting to change his ways. Overall, Patrick Dorgu, United finished that season pretty sure was 14, 15, 16, 17. It's such a fever dream. The fact that Tottenham and United finished so low last year that I can't believe it. Like, it's still something I can't accept that these two big clubs finished so low in the table. So the fact that, Dorgu joined, they finished in 15th. Um, he's had appearances for United, but I don't think there's any United player, and United fan rather, that's going to come out to be like Dogu has been our top two players this season. Overall, apart from very nice moments here and there, I'm gonna give him a D. I don't really have anything too positive to say about the transfer. I think it's just been a really difficult time for United trying to get back to where they want to be. But I don't know if I hope for them to get better. I like a good United team. I don't want them to be too good. I like them good for like top four, but not so good that they're challenging for the league. So maybe if they could be a little bit better, I'll be happy for them. I'm already happy for where they are right now, but I don't think Dogu is the answer, and I think he needs help in terms of other positions in the midfield, in the wing, a lot. But yeah, Dogu for me is a D. Um, yeah, I don't have much more to say on him.
Alrighty. DP.
Well, personally, I think Dorgu is a good player. I feel like um he's not being helped with the situation that Manchester United are in. I feel like back end of last season when he was brought in the January transfer window, he was definitely a spark in United side. He when he was playing, he was I guess he was missing some things, but then you would understand that this guy is a young player coming into a very, very intense league, trying to keep up with the pace of the league, trying to help a team as well that is not doing well. So I think when he came into the side, he did a pretty good job. He did as much as he could for a player his age. A lot of United fans were they were happy with his impact on the side. They felt like maybe his crossing could be better, but I feel okay, that's something he can improve on over time. But I think he was doing his job in the left wing back position. Um, our producer was saying the guy is a right winger. I've watched him on the right wing. He looks decent, but that guy is a left back. That guy is a left back, man. He's a left back, left wing back. Because as a winger, I don't feel like there's two types of wingers. You're either the one that holds the touchline or the inside forward that likes to run in behind. And Dogu is he that he's fast, but he's not that fast. And holding the touchline, he's not going to do any skill that is going to beat him out. The guy is just he's a decent player. I feel like he can definitely he's putting in a good shift on the right wing goal. Like let's be honest, like in his games, in the games he's played like for Man United on the right wing, he's done his job because
Yeah,
Manchester United are playing with some liabilities in their side, and I
yeah,
don't I don't even understand how they're getting by, but they're getting by. And
somehow.
I don't know if I agree with the sacking of Amorim. He's a young coach. I don't think he should have been sacked at the moment, considering that Ahmad and Mbemo
Bueno,
on AFCON duty, Maduari to AFCON. But I think he tried to do what he could with that side. I can't lie. There's not much you can do with that side. They still need some reinforcements. But in regards to Dorgu's transfer, I think 30 million is a bit too taxed for Dorgu, especially coming from Lecce. I think they once they see Manchester United is coming for a player, they're going to up the price by a particular
Mm,
amount. So
Yeah,
30 million is a bit of a tax for Patrick Dorgu. I think he's a young player coming to the Premier League, decent guy, decent player as well. So I think I'm going to give him a C minus, like a D actually. Let me just give him a D
mm,
because
mm,
I still think there's more he can do. I
yeah,
think if I don't think they should replace him. I feel like they should still stick with him and actually grind him out because he can be a very good player.
mm.
Coming from the left fullback position. So
yeah.
yeah, Patrick Dorgu, I'm giving him a D just because he hasn't really done anything spectacular, but he's
Okay.
contributing in a decent way. So yeah,
Mm.
a D.
All right then. With Patrick Dogo, I'll be honest with you. Before I go on with my explanation, I think I just want to say that it's not his fault because I don't know what the United scouts were looking at when they saw Patrick Dogo and they felt he was ready to come to Manchester United and make an impact. I really don't understand because for me, even at Lecce, he was highly inconsistent. He was just average for me. And then if you're really thinking about United and you're saying to yourself that you know what, you want this team to get better, you're trying to see this team win trophies. I don't understand how Patrick Dogu comes into the team and helps you make that wish become a reality. But what I will give him credit for is the fact that he has improved in his position
Yeah.
since he joined United, and I think he's trying his best to positively impact the team in the best way that he can. I think there's a limit to what he can do. Um, he's not the most talented player, but I believe he's very hardworking, and he's got some traits that definitely would be useful to any team. So it's up to the next coach. I think for now it's up to Darren Fletcher, whatever he's going to do with Dortmund, because now I can see that they've switched to a four at the back. So Dogu needs to prove himself either as a fullback or as an impactful winger. So, but I think I agree with Dapo for sure. It's a D for me when it comes to Patrick Dogu. But let's see how the season turns out, and let's see if he's able to improve and impact United in a better way. So now we're moving over to the top five on the list. In number five is Victor Reis, who joined Manchester City from Palmeiras, and he's currently on loan at Girona. Tony.
Vitores. I like Palmeiras. You know, I think they're a really top club from Brazil. I'm so many talents. Esteban, was he also from Palmeiras, or am I
He
wrong?
was. He
He
was.
was,
Esteban
yeah.
was from Palmeiras. Yeah.
Many ballers from there. If people just take the time, listeners, to just go look up Brazilian stars from Palmeiras, and the list is way too long. But yeah, I just love it when the club has history of just producing talents. You have those clubs all over the world. In Belgium, it would be like a Club Bruges. In Portugal, it may be like a Benfica or a Sporting that will create a top talent. In Brazil, it will be guys like Palmeiras. Um, this guy makes Dorgu look like Danny Alves. But Vitores, I think I'm not. Basically, what I will say is like he's a wait and see kind of situation because of like how much people look at Brazilian marking and Brazilian, players as an opportunity to be able to like unearth, gems, get them young, create a superstar, and sell him for 70 million. You have a lot of hits and misses. For example, there was a winger Arsenal guy called Marquinhos. He's not doing too well right now. I'm gonna just leave it at that. He's probably like a second division European player. But when we brought him in from Brazil, we were thinking he might be like a Martinelli region, somebody up to that level. But not all the times it can happen, right? So Vitores for Man City. I will say Man City has great scouts. I can see that for thinking he has this. His mind is cooking right now. But let me land. I think Vitores, right? Man City scouts, I trust them. I think they've been able to identify talents for a long time. Especially young talents. They've been really successful. The amount of young guys that they bring from other clubs, other academies, polish up their game and get them ready for first team football. I can't hate Man City do a fantastic job there. And I think Victorious is, along that mode. And they are right now utilizing their multi-club system, with their sister club Girona, which is where he currently plays at. I'm pretty sure he's probably on loan with Girona to be able to get minutes, get used to the European football, and then hopefully make a transition into the Premier League with Man City. Now, the reason why I can't give him an A or a B is because of performance. I think right now is a lot of speculation. I'm trying to see what he could be. But there really isn't enough evidence for me to be able to go out there and be like, yo, this guy's been a superstar signing. It's a lot of potential that we're living off of. So I'm gonna go with the safe C. I'm gonna go with the safe C. I will just have to wait and see what happens with Torres.
Yeah,
VP.
Dapo.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to say is that so Martinelli self has regen. I didn't know that guy has a regen. Oh my god.
Hey man, we tried the Martinelli formula because we got Martinelli for 6M from Ituano. And right now, I don't know how much Martinelli is worth, but
Okay,
it's around
Martinelli
6
probably
million.
worth like a good 70 million to
A
Arsenal,
good
dude.
70. And that's the whole model of game players. So
That's
Marquinhos
just
was
good.
about 12 million, 12 to 50 million. We are basically breaking even on that one. So you either have the Brazilian guy that goes like times 10, or the Brazilian guy that you have to like take a 1 million loss or break even, depending on how
True.
much you invest in it. And that's the
Yeah.
thing about like Brazilian talents. But yeah, what are you gonna say on
That makes
Vitor?
sense. So Vitoraj, this is my boy. Oh. This is my boy, and like I was happy when we got to number 5, because Vitoraj is actually a really good center back. A lot of people are not even aware of what this guy does. I mean, if you're a football watcher and you watch the transfer window, you go and check players that are on the map, you probably know about Vitoraj. But if you just said that Man City signed one boy, Vitoraj, you will not hear of him till when he's actually playing in our side. This guy is literally another John Stones, but the Brazilian kind. And I feel like for Girona right now, he's doing a very good job. I was hoping that Man City would call him back this January, especially with Guardiola out, Ruben Diaz out, John Stones out. We have a lot of injuries to our centre backs, but I think it was smart for them not to call him back and let him just finish his progression like through the end of the season.
Interesting.
Bring him back in the summer. Let John Stones go. It's about time that guy gets going. So like Vitor Raj, I feel like he has a lot of potential. He's a good center back, very good center back, very good ball playing center back. Defensively, he's aware as well. Like the games I watched him play for Manchester City, I was impressed. I didn't even want them to loan him out to Girona. I wanted them to keep him in the team because they kept him in the team right now. He'll be playing now. Him and Kustanov will be playing because I think okay, obviously Ake has more experience than him, but I don't know. I would take him over Ake. I can't even lie. I would have him start over Ake, and I just think Vitora is a really good centre back. We got him for 29, 30 million. He could potentially be worth like a good 80 in another few years. I can't lie. And I just think he was a good addition to our side, and he's progressing well in Girona right now. Obviously, they're not the best side in La Liga. They're not as good as they were when Savinio was there. They are trying and they're getting by. So I think he's doing a pretty decent job for them as well. I watched him against Barcelona. He had a very, very good game against them as well too. So I think I'm gonna give Vitoraj a C because I think he has a very, very huge potential. He hasn't done anything too crazy though, but I'm going to give him a C just based on the potential I see from him. But let's just see how that ends up being.
Honestly, for a Victoresh who didn't play too many games after joining in January, I think a C is fair because the quality is just evident. My personal issue with Victoresh, and the only issue I think I have with him for now, is the lack of upper body strength. I think once he puts on a bit of weight, and when he can be more physical, and when he can go into duels in the Premier League and win them successfully and confidently, I think he needs a bit of confidence as well. I think he's the type of player that needs a lot of hyping up. And I do believe that he needs to be paired up with someone who's going to be ready to do the dirty work. I think for me, Victor Resch is like a Saliba, and I think he needs a Gabriel at Man City, someone who would always probably cover up for him if he overplays, right? Because for every good ball playing centre back, there's that tendency to overplay. But I think he's got the um, what's the best word to use? I like his countenance. I like his aura. He's calm, right? And everything he everything he does is with ease. So he needs someone who's going to be a bit more combative, somebody who's going to be a bit more vocal in comparison to him. He's doing a very decent job at Girona so far. Just like DP said, I think it's a good thing that he wasn't recalled. And then again, Man City would not want to destabilize Girona because Girona is a sister club within the City group. So it's like it's family basically. Unlike Chelsea, who don't care, who stole Liam Rosenio from Strasbourg and made him the coach of Chelsea. But hey, I like the Man City way, and just like GP said once again, it's starting to look like John Stones' contract is not going to be extended. It's starting to look like he's going to leave next season. So I mean, if John Stones, a player of that caliber, is leaving Manchester City, and you've got a Victor coming in, I think that's pretty decent. I think that's pretty decent. So for sure, it's a C
And
for
to add to that, right, I feel like Manchester City do have those players that you know how Victor Raj is okay, like you said, he's a ball playing centre back. He's going to develop his ball playing. I feel like he definitely needs to add some weight as well. But I definitely feel like for his type of centre back, he John Stones doesn't really go into duels like that. He makes slide tackles at the right time. But like I feel like the type of centre backs they are is just being able to read the game to perfection, know where to be at the particular times, get the ball, like Saliba, like you were saying. So I feel like he does have a Kusanov that is going to go into the dirty duels. A Diaz that is going to go into the dirty duels. I don't know if we're going to get Marguerite or not, but he would also go into those duels. Vadio also does it as well. So I feel like he will have the support that he needs at Manchester City. So I'm looking forward to him, man. I can't wait. I really can't wait. Can't wait,
right
man.
there. Everyone should look forward to seeing Victor in the Premier League next
Mm-hmm.
season, the 2026-27 season. Now moving over to number 4, a player that DP has already name dropped just a couple of minutes ago, Abdelkader Kuzanov. He also moved from Lens in France to Manchester City in January 2025. Toby?
With Kusanov, I'm going to give Kusanov a B minus. The reason why I'm going to give Kusanov a B minus is I think for him it's always going to be difficult to join a Premier League champion at the level of Man City and join and be at the level that their players already are, coming from Lens, coming as a young player. But you can definitely tell that there's talent there. He definitely has, the mentality in terms of like, the what's what I'm looking for, the march sharpness to be able to play in the Premier League. I think he's a smart player. I think he's a physical player, and I think the thing for him is just being ready to be able to join Man City's system and perform and do what Pep needs him to do to be able to be a consistent starter. But obviously, when he first came into Man City, he had some good games, had some not so good games. But I believe that was just, a nature of being a young player, a new player coming to a new system that wasn't already like City isn't really known, at least in recent times, they are known for being the world's best defensive team. So if you're a young player, a new player from a different league coming to join, you're gonna have some growing pains, and I think we definitely saw that. But in a City side that's dominant, holding possession, pressing teams back, Kusanov is very, very good in repressing attacks, counters, those kind of things. He's a smart guy that can read the play and can help support his teammates. I think in a system where you have guys like Guardiola, Ruben Diaz around him, some level of experience and like, those kind of senior players, that mix with Kusanov works perfectly. But I think is if they have all of the other pieces around him. So I kind of didn't like him when he first came to the league. I thought that he wouldn't be able to perform at the level. But Man City scouting always proves me wrong. They always, identify top talents and they do their best to be able to make them work. And I think Kusanov will work. The question is, how high of a ceiling does he have? How high or how well can he go? That remains to be seen. It's all down to performances and like, winning and trophies. But it's going to be very difficult. And I'm not trying to like be, a Man City doom gloom or whatever like that. But I think we're getting to an era right now. I'm pretty sure when next season, Man City will challenge for the league. Arsenal will challenge for the league. Liverpool, I believe, will challenge for the league next year. They'll be a lot more better, a lot more prepared. And maybe someone like Chelsea, someone like Newcastle, someone like Villa, even someone like United, if they get it right, will be in a position to also like play well. That means at the top end of the league, it's going to be very, very much more competitive. And will Kusanov be in a position to be able to help City win the league? I don't know. That's what it means to be seen to be able to take this from a B to an A kind of guy. But right now, I'm going to go with a B minus because the talent is there, the performances are there. Right now, he's joining a City team that's in transition. So I understand if anybody wants to give him a C because it's someone lackluster. But there's something there with Kusanov. I definitely like him a lot for City.
All right then, DP.
Well, for me, all I'm gonna say is 3 years from now, this guy's probably gonna be one of the best center backs in the league. Why is that? The guy is very, very young, but then he's a very, very good center back. This guy is strong, he's fast, he reads the game well. The only thing I'll say about Kusanov is he probably just needs to reduce how aggressive he is sometimes. Like when he goes into tackles, he might needs to just calm down sometimes. He gives me Otamendi, but just way smarter, way faster, way agile. Like this guy is your complete center back. And I can't lie, a lot of people don't even watch, they probably don't even watch him like that. But as a City fan, I've seen enough of Kusanov to tell you that 3 years from now, if he's consistently starting, and the thing is that it might never be 3 years, it might be 5 years because Ruben Diaz just signed a new contract. Vardiol is on our side. I don't know if we're going to get Marguehi, like I'm saying, but if we get Marguehi, that's another experienced center back that's coming into the mix. And it's like, where, like, how often is he going to get his own game time? But in my opinion, Kusanov is already a really good center back. I personally would not mind him as my starting center back with Vadio right now. But I understand why Diaz has to start based on the experience, leadership, impact in the side. And I've been seeing all of that from Diaz this season, which is why I'm very, very comfortable with Kusanov sitting on the bench. If I was seeing Diaz make mistakes, not do what I know Diaz can do, then I would be saying Kusanov should be a regular starter for Manchester City. But right now, I don't mind his current position in the team, and now he has to step up because Diaz is injured, Vardiol is injured. He just has to step up, and I think he's done that in the past 2 games. I just want to see more from him. I think 33 million for him is good. Like that's very, very good. I can't lie. He's a very good center back. The only game he was shaky in was the game against Chelsea, which I think Pep really just he sold him there by throwing him into that game. I think he
Yeah.
sold him there. But if we're being real and we're not just trying to be biased and just laugh, but the mistake he made, he was pretty solid in that game. Like
Mhm.
he did his job. He did his job completely fine. And since he stepped into the team and been playing, I can't lie. I don't think he's put a foot wrong like that. I'll be honest. Like he's not really put a foot wrong. And I would remember because I'm always on these players' asses. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I think he's been good. I think he's been good. I think he's a really good center back. I'm gonna give him a B for sure.
Mm.
I'm gonna give him
I can understand why Dapo will give you a B because considering the price tag, a great bargain for a player of his quality, considering how chaotic the transfer window is at the moment. Um, Considering the fact that he was basically thrown into the wolves from the beginning, someone who speaks little English. But I, bar that mistake that was made, he had a very decent performance against Chelsea. Um, the thing about Kuzanov for me is that I don't know how it's going to turn out. So it's either of two ways for me, the way I see him. It's either the aggression in him is refined in a way that is going to be to his advantage in the best way to his own playing style. Because defenders have got different playing styles. He's not physically, you can see that he's not bulky, but he's agile enough to be able to be fast and aggressive enough as a defender, especially in the Premier League. Just like what DP said, his current style of intensity, to me sometimes it looks like he could hurt himself, right? But obviously, Kozanov understands himself. He understands his own playing style. But I'm wondering what's going on with Pep Guardiola and his coaching staff in terms of what they have in store in terms of his development. He can play as a right back. He can play on either side as a centre back as well. I think he's intelligent enough to step into midfield, if you ask me. So he's one player that you know what you want to bring the best out of him, but then again you don't necessarily want to like stunt his growth.
But I think so far so good from Kuzanov. I think yeah, I would agree with Lagesh and say probably B minus. A B minus does make sense for Kuzanov. Good impact so far, but we all know he can do better. But for the little he has done, yeah, a B minus does make a lot of sense. I think for sure, Kuzanov is another player that a lot of people should keep an eye on. For the next couple of years in football. Moving over now to number three, another Manchester City signing. Let's just put it out there that I think Manchester City spent £200 million in January 2025, and nothing to show for it. Let's just put it out there. But then number three now, Nico Gonzalez. Um, yeah, Toby.
I'm glad you brought up my Man City spending because I was just about to. Because it seems like Man City spend 100 minimum every window now. And
Calm
what?
down. Calm
Come on,
down.
come on now. January, this summer, and this January again. We're not. You City are about to spend another 100 this January again. I'm like, hey man, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. With, at the end of the day, like the top side, when you lose players, you have to invest to bring them back. So valid. But we need to see something. See, you can't go trophyless. If you go trophyless, don't let me catch you. Don't let me catch you because same energy, right? But yeah, Nico Gonzalez, I'm happy with him this year. Last year, I was I was on him. He was supposed to step in to be that Rodri replacement. But now, looking at it now in hindsight, how do you expect a young man, 22, 23, coming from the Portuguese league to step in and come and do Rodri's role? Rodri, when he came from Spain at the age of 25, 26, wasn't doing Rodri things. He grew into that player at City. So obviously the expectations were very, very, very high on Nico Gonzalez, which I definitely now I'm thinking about it now were unfair expectations on him to be able to perform at such an insane level. But now I'm seeing him grow into his own, understand his teammates understand him. And a year after that transfer, I believe he's starting to show dividends. And it's I don't know. I would like to get Dapo's POV on this statement I'm about to make. But is it crazy to think that Nico Gonzalez might actually be a better fit for City right now than Rodri? Does he perform better for City right now than Rodri? I don't watch enough of City games to be able to make that claim. But the games that I do see, he plays really well. And the games that Rodri is playing in, Rodri plays well, but sometimes the results aren't going the way we expect it to go. So I'm not really too sure, what the cause and effect of all of that is. But overall, I think Nico Gonzalez is starting to justify that price tag and then some. He's going to be a really good player for City. He's going to be a good player for his national team as well with the years to come. Like the same thing with Kusanov, I don't doubt their talent. I don't doubt their ability. They're going to perform well because it is a great club in terms of how they are structured from top to bottom. But now in this very competitive landscape that City is in right now, in comparison to 5 years ago, how many trophies is he gonna win? That's gonna be the thing that's gonna make him an A-star signing. But I'm gonna give him a B plus. I'm gonna give him a B plus off of what I see from him this year. The price might seem like a lot, but for a 22, 23 year old, center defensive midfielder is supposed to be, being the anchor for his team and stopping attacks and starting attacks for his side, stopping attacks for the opposite team, starting attacks for his team. The ball is supposed to go through him a lot. So obviously for a 50M player, if he grows and continues to grow into that Rodri mold, he'll definitely be an A plus. Right now, I'm going to give him a B plus.
Okay. Uh, Pretty decent. I'm going to also give him a B plus. I'm going to drop my rating before I say what I need to say, but I'm going to give him a B plus. Firstly, I'm going to talk about what you said about Manchester City spending 100 million every transfer window. Let's be real. We've only done that in this January transfer window, which we needed to because our season was literally going downhill. We had lost back to back games. Like it was not like us to lose as many games as we had lost. The way we were playing was poor. Or I just felt like we had too many old players in our team, and it's understandable. These players just came off the back of winning a treble, and it's
Yeah.
like, bro, they've overworked themselves, and it's rightly so that we go and replace them because the summer before that we didn't buy anybody. I think we
Okay.
was like, bro, we barely spent any money, and with the money we were making, it's like it's only fair that we go and spend the money. We won a treble, and we still are a very rich side as well, so we might as
Plus, you
well
sold
spend the money.
Alvarez. You sold Alvarez.
But
Like,
yeah, we
not
now
that
sold Alvarez. We sold someone else too. I just don't want to even remember them at the moment. But I know we made a few sales that I never agree with. I didn't agree with the Alvarez sale, but it kind of made sense. 70 million, we made our money back, which is good. So I think Nico Gonzalez is a another very, very good player. I'll say this one thing about Manchester City is we buy very, very smart. We don't buy we buy very, very smart. We scout players well and we buy smart. Nico Gonzalez is another really good buy because he's a defensive midfielder that can also play as a box to box midfielder. And you're asking me if he is better for us right now as opposed to Rodri. I'll say no, I think he can do the job. He's doing the job very, very well. And in the next maybe season or two, yeah, you can now decide, you can now ask the question and be able to see the clear difference of whether, yeah, maybe he is better or not. Because at the moment, I don't think there's any defensive midfielder better than Rodri. Even when he comes back into our side, he he just looks so good. I'm not going to lie, he looks ahead. And he looks ahead, bro. I'm not going to lie. He came back in one game that we drew that we really should have won because he
The
played
2-2, right? Yeah, the 2-2 game.
we
I
drew
can't remember.
we drew 3 games back to back now.
Yeah,
3 games back to back. We just won yesterday, obviously. But before that, we drew 3 games. And the game where Roger came back in, I felt we could have won that game because of how well he played in that match, personally. I just felt Haaland in the past 3 games we played by yesterday, he's just been doing his own thing. I can't lie. Like, I don't know what's going on with that guy, but he'll get back to his normal self soon. But I just think Nico Gonzalez was a brilliant signing. He's a very, very good defensive midfielder. And I feel like his presence in Manchester City is being felt a lot more this season, as opposed to when he first joined, like you were saying, Toby. It's very, very, it's a bit too much for us to just assume that he comes into the side immediately and starts to like blossom in a position that is probably the most important position on the football pitch. If you
yeah,
guys agree with me,
yeah.
defensive position is probably the hardest place to play on the pitch, and it's like expecting him to come there. Even when he played, I could see that more. At least this guy is big enough and he's making some interceptions as opposed to before January when he wasn't there and I just saw teams running through my midfield. And it's like, when did this even start happening? It doesn't. This was not a thing before, but when he came in and he played, it's like, okay, I'm feeling the physical presence. And then this season, nah, he's been so good. I can't even lie. I've been so impressed with him. At some point, I wasn't even thinking about Rodri's injury anymore. Like, I'm like, okay, Nico, just be playing, don't be playing. But when Rodri came back, I'm like, Momo, this Rodri guy is different too. Yeah, it's actually
Rolls
different.
Royce.
I just feel Nico Gonzalez can actually develop into another Rodri, and it will now depend on him if he's actually. It will depend on his own personal assets if he would actually be better than Rodri or not. Because Rodri scores worldies, and that's
Yeah,
another thing to look. He separates both of them because it's like those goals Rodri scores are very important. Can Nico Gonzalez add goals to his game? That's another important thing that would differentiate whether he's actually going to be as good as Rodri or not. But anything apart from that, man, I just think he's a really good player, a really good defensive midfielder. Can also play as an 8 as well. And B plus is a good rating for him. I don't think he should have an A just yet. But yeah, on to you, Barry.
Mm. Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, for Nico Gonzalez, no doubt. I think he has improved since he joined. Um, his first couple of games for City were quite shaky. I think when he initially joined, he was never going to have the same type of impact that Rodri did. But I think him coming into the Premier League, I think he struggled a lot. I was quite underwhelmed by his performances. Um, did he make a step too early? I don't know. For someone like Pep Guardiola to go after him, to sign such a player for such such an important position in his philosophy of football, that means that Pep sees the potential there, and Pep feels like, this player is good enough to deputize in the absence of Rodri, and I can build with this player going forward. So honestly, just like DP has said, it's up to Nico Gonzalez to um, show us how good he can be. Obviously, he's very decent in terms of tackling. I like the fact that he's a bit more physical in comparison to Rodri. I think that obviously he would thrive in the Premier League in the long run. But if we're talking about defensive midfielders, and we're talking about defensive midfielders having an impact on the results of games or the playing style of their teams. I don't think Nico Gonzalez is currently in that conversation. I think there are probably, I think I can probably name three or four other defensive midfielders that Pep Guardiola would rather have right now than Nico Gonzalez. But you know what, Nico Gonzalez at the end of the day is still one of the good talents out there. And one thing we know for a fact is that when young players who are willing to learn um, meet Pep Guardiola and go under his mentorship, they are really never the same again. So let's see what the future has to hold for Nico Gonzalez. So far, so good. I think the B is decent for him, and I'm really looking forward to see how his career turns out. In the next couple of years. Uh, Now we're done with the Manchester City phase. We're moving over to our top two. Now, number two is Umar Mamouche, who joined Manchester City. I thought we were moving over from Manchester City, another Manchester City player. This is probably the first player that helped them to get that price tag, or rather that expenditure for January. Umar Mamouche, who is currently at AFCON playing for Egypt, who also this week and last week there have been rumors regarding him potentially leaving Man City maybe this January due to the signing of Antoine Semenyo. But it's now looking more likely that it's Oscar Bob and Obama Mush might not have his position threatened. Whilst you guys give your opinion regarding this signing, kindly also speak about where you see him thriving long term as a backup striker, as a second striker, or as a left winger. Toby?
Mhm. I love that second point you brought up because that was going to be one of my sticks that I was going to use. I think for me, Omama Ocean Eintracht was very, very entertaining to watch. A lot of goals, super entertaining attacking player. Goals, assists, movements, incredible moments. He gave it all for those fans in Germany. Now, when he signed for City, obviously City already have Haaland, and a team like that have a very like big enigma like Haaland, who we know is going to be fit for a lot of games because he takes care of himself incredibly well. I don't know why. I would like to. I would like to read an article or see if people can tell me about this. But like, what does Haaland do to prevent himself from getting injured? 'Cause I don't think he suffers from injuries a lot, but he takes really good care of himself. His play style, though people would be trying to tackle him often, but somehow maybe his spatial awareness, the way he moves and finds space, they don't get the opportunity to get to like tackle him or hurt him. Raw milk, yeah, man. A gallon of milk a day to wake up and to go to bed, and you'll be just like Erling. But yeah, right. Going to a team like that, I felt like Marmoush would have difficulties in terms of finding game time in that position as number one striker. But even if they were to, play him as a number nine, I think the team is very much used to the Haaland style. If Marmoush came to City before Haaland, back when City was doing the whole we don't use a striker, we don't need a striker, midfielders in all the positions, we don't need a recognized nine, Marmoush should have worked very, very well for them. I think the team now is going to a place now where they're very used to the target man up front with someone like Haaland. Arsenal is feeling that pressure right now because we haven't gotten used to that target man just yet. But when we do, the team will now get used to that kind of play, and going back and forth between the target man and the fluid nine who is moving around, that advanced forward that can go forward, come back, go left, go wide. It gets a bit confusing, especially if your wingers are goal scoring wingers. So when you have a situation where you have goal scoring wingers that want to score, um, and they also have a target man up front that's used to getting the ball into his feet, playing for him to score. Mamouche gets into this weird position where like he doesn't know, like I can't tell where his best place is for this team. He's very similar to me, the same way we talk about Donyell Malen. I think of Mamouche that way. I feel like he's probably more suited for an inside forward kind of position where he works off the striker, similar to Oscar Bob. I don't see Oscar Bob as like a touchline winger. I see him more as like an inside forward who has to work with his striker to score goals. But usually those work better when you have a two striker formation, a 4-4-2 type of situation. But most teams don't play that. And especially in England, where, like, we're very, very much in possession, out of possession. We're doing a lot of 4-4-3s. We're doing a lot of 3-3-3s type of situations. We don't have those positions where we have people next to each other trying to combine. It's always triangles. And when you're a player like Marmoush who wants to be an inside forward in between two positions, like, he just has to end up, passing and moving to keep the ball going. They aren't really playing for him to go score. So I think for Marmoush, it's a very, very tough transfer to be able to find himself at City, because I don't know when the team is going to play for him or play in such a way where it's going to bring out the best in him. Overall for the signing, I'm gonna give him like a C minus, just because I don't feel like he's performed to the heights that I was looking for. But I think Marmoush is supposed to be the next big Egyptian star after Salah, so perhaps he can grow into that role. A lot of teams now are buying for the next 5 years, so maybe it's not right now Marmoush hits his thing. Maybe it's 2 years from now where Marmoush can be the guy, and maybe the team just has to evolve more. It needs to get a couple more profiles in. But I do not see Marmoush and Semenyo as the same player. I don't think Marmoush should be feeling weird about them signing Semenyo in that position, because I just don't see him as the same type of player. I think Marmoush, can be in a situation where, like, if Semenyo plays left wing, maybe Haaland plays right center forward, Marmoush plays right wing, but not the traditional right wing where he's trying to hold the touchline. Maybe he plays more central as an inside forward, and then you have a fullback that overlaps for him on the right side. I think those kind of situations will be what works best for Marmoush. But right now, the team doesn't really play for him, and he just has to just get used to the Man City style of play. I think Alvarez was better at doing that kind of thing. Marmoush was supposed to replace Alvarez in my mind, but I think Alvarez is a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Malleable in terms of, like, being fluid for the team. Because Alvarez is just a total football player. He can do anything. I think in an attacking position, Julian Alvarez, when he was at City.
Yeah,
Um,
played as a 10, he played as a second striker, played as a winger. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Marmoush maybe needs to become a better ball player. If he does become a better ball player, I think he has the pace and the skill to perhaps just become a winger. But I don't think he's a winger. I like him more as a striker, more in the center positions. But maybe he would just need to see more of his game. I know he's had some injuries, so maybe the injuries are as what held him back a little bit for City. But basically, I have this feeling of I'm wanting more from Omar Marmoush, and I haven't gotten it yet. And I don't feel like right now the current City setup is best place for him to show his talents. All those things considered, plus the 60 million price tag, is gonna have to be a C for me.
Okay.
Right. He-
Well, let me talk about Omar Marmoush, man. For your information, this guy is probably one of my favorite City players. Why is he one of my favorite City players? We got him in January, and he pretty much helped us qualify for the Champions League this season. Without Omar Marmoush being signed in January, Man City don't qualify for the Champions League, and it's just the reality of things. And he came into the
That's
side. He
statement.
came into the side, got a lot of important goals in a lot of important games, and those goals were not like he was tapping in. He pretty much made the goals. The last goal of the season that he scored for us won the goal of the season. Just that's just how
Yeah.
crazy the goal was. And in my opinion, he's probably one of our best attackers. I do not know why Pep has decided to shift away from him being used as a left winger slash inside forward. Because whenever you see someone like Umar Mamouche starting on the left wing in the lineup, you would think that he's not going to be holding the touchline. He's going to be running in behind the striker, and which is what he was being deployed to do when he came in. He's either a left wing or second striker in front. Yeah, exactly. So him as a left winger, his role would be an inside forward, running behind the striker and play off the striker, which is what I thought Pep would be doing this season, having Omar Marmouche and then maybe like a Savinio who is not even living up to the billing anymore. But now even like Turkey now, maybe like a Marmouche, Turkey, Haaland type of setup is what I was looking for from Pep mainly. But then Marmouche got an injury at the start of the season and he started playing Doku, and Doku has just been brilliant. Like right now, I think Doku is our starting left winger, but the way Doku is, he shouldn't be starting every single game. in my opinion. So I think that Pep really, I don't know what he's doing exactly right now, but he sees Marmoush as a second striker to Haaland. And I don't know why that is, because you were playing him on the left wing with Haaland last season. So why are you not replicating the same thing again? I don't know. Although I watched us in the preseason and Marmoush on the left wing, it wasn't working, but he was being asked to hold the touchline in that particular game I watched. He was holding the touchline, and I'm not going to lie, he was looking pretty bad at holding that touchline. He couldn't beat his man. That was one of the biggest thing. He couldn't beat his man, but I understand him not beating his man because he's not a Doku type of winger. He's not a Semenyo type of winger like you guys were saying. So I don't expect him to do that. I expect him to run him behind because he's very, very fast and finish because he's a very brilliant finisher. So it's like, Pep, why is he not doing that? And now that Semenyo is brought in, I don't think he should be mad at that, like you were saying as well, because there are two different types of players. I feel like we can have a setup of Semenyo on the right wing, because I know you were saying Marmoush on the right wing, but I would prefer Marmoush coming up the left because Semenyo can use both of his feet, and he's also played on the right wing a lot. So Semenyo on the right, Marmoush on the left, Haaland as a striker still is what I think is Manchester City's most deadly attack. I can't lie.
Can I cut
Okay,
in real quick?
you can
But
go.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
for Mamouche on the left, right? You don't want him to be a touchline winger. You want him to be more closer to the striker and maybe have a left back be the
Like a
one that
Nuri,
overlaps.
like a Nuri
Yes,
overlapping, or
yeah,
O'Reilly overlapping. Perfect.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
exactly. So
valid.
I think Marmoush playing on the left wing having to overlap depends on the type of fullback that is playing. If it's Ike Nuri, yes. If it's Vadio, no. If it's
No.
Ake, no. Because these players would rather invert and take up more of like a second DM position or inverted midfielder position, as the case may be, inverted fullback. Pardon me. But I think Aït is the only out and out touchline fullback that City have. Rico Lewis is another player that can do that, but
Think about
I think
O'Reilly though.
he's also starting to
O'Reilly,
enjoy.
O'Reilly.
Yeah. So it really just depends on Pep Guardiola. At the end of the day, I think he's one manager who I believe his greatest downfalls in his career are all based on his own undoing. I think his overthinking sometimes affects him, especially while he has been at Manchester City. I think that affected him over time. So at the end of the day, like it's up to Pep Guardiola to find, the best way possible for the team, to be set up really.
Yeah,
So now moving
let me
over
just
to
finish what I was saying
our
about him. Give me a
one
second.
now, um, Jean
Can you hear
Duran.
me? Wait, let me finish saying what I was saying about Marmoush because I didn't finish or I didn't even grade him at all. So
Go on,
yeah,
go on, go on, bro.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was saying that this season though Pep is not playing him on the left wing at all. He's not featured
Mhm.
in any of our games on the left wing, and he's basically being used as a second option for Haaland, and I don't agree to that in my opinion. I think if you were using him on the left wing as an inside forward last season, you should do the same thing again this season. But you never know. Like he's coming back from AFCON, he's been doing well for Egypt, and another thing about Marmoush is I do not think he can play as a lone striker. As a lone striker, Marmoush is not efficient. I've seen him in games where he's just the only striker. I know Manchester City is kind of used to playing to Haaland's strengths, but I don't agree with Marmoush as a lone striker. He just doesn't do well like that. I think he has to play off the back of somebody to see the best version of Omar Marmoush, in my opinion. So this season, Pep isn't using him a lot. I hope he uses him now that we have Semenyo and more attacking options. And I think the player that needs to go is Oscar Bob. Can't lie. I agree with Oscar Bob. Moving on, let's have Marmoush, let's have Doku, let's have Semenyo, and maybe that Savinho guy. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed in Savinho, in my opinion. To be honest, because I rated him pretty highly, but this season he's letting me down a whole lot, and I'm just so happy that we brought in Antoine Semenyo. I think he's the best winger in the Premier League at the moment, and I'm just very very happy that he joined us. But for Omar Marmoush, I'm going to give him a B minus just because I know what he can do and what he possesses, but he's not playing a lot right now, so B minus.
All right then, it's a B minus for Omar Mamouche. let's hope that for his own sake, let's hope he still has a future at Manchester City, even though he's currently at AFCON with Egypt. Now to the number one, the most expensive signing from the January transfer window in 2025, Jean Duran, who left Aston Villa for Al Nassr, and he's currently on loan at Fenerbahce. Toby?
I'm thinking, how can I give this one transfer move multiple ratings? Like, there's like three different ratings I can give to because
Understandable, bro.
from a sporting point of view, it's an F for me personally. The young player going to Saudi, I don't like the look of it. I mean, like the way they would brand it in the media is like, upcoming league. We want to show all the talents. We want to improve the standard of football there in Saudi. I get it, valid. But John Duran was in a position to be able to he was basically next up as that he was giving Julian Alvarez vibes, in my opinion, in terms of what he could be for a big side in Europe. Me personally, the kind of goals he was scoring, the performances he was putting, the absolute golazos John Duran was creating. He came out of nowhere for me, came to Villa, and I was scared of that guy, not gonna lie. The goals he was scoring, I was worried. And then I'm hearing he's going to Al Nassr. I was quite shocked because I didn't expect that kind of move for someone of his age. When it was a thing where it was going to be either John Duran or Oli Watkins leaving Villa, I was very confident that it was going to be Watkins leaving because Watkins was the older guy, kind of wanted to leave. John Duran was currently getting the minutes, it just made sense. But for whatever reason, whatever falling out, John Duran made the move. It is an A for him in terms of monetary benefits, in terms of what it does for Villa in terms of solving their PSR problems. I'm sure that 64 million was a very, very big help to Villa. And, it's helping them to be able to perform and do what they're doing today. But it was a loss of top talent. I think personally the player wouldn't repeat the move because, after that one season, he's now in Turkey. I think he came up in another episode we had recently, and that's when I realized that he's no longer in Saudi, he's actually in Turkey. Not is it Turkey? Yeah, he's in Turkey now.
Yeah,
So yeah, so clearly it wasn't the most successful move for him, and for whatever reason he realized he didn't want to stay. And one thing people don't know is that when you go to Saudi, you don't keep the tax-free option only stays if you stay for 3 years. So unless you stay for 3 years, if you stay for 3 years, the money you make, you get it tax-free. If you don't, you get taxed. So after everything, he probably made a couple M, but to what end? He's taking steps back in his career at club level. But I think with the correct graft, with the correct hard work, he'll make it back. Overall, I'm gonna give this a D for a transfer. I think if I average my F plus my A, I'm gonna give him somewhere in a D. I don't want to give him a C because that feels like a passing grade. I'm not happy with this kind of transfer. I think he was much too young to be going to Saudi. It was clearly for the money and all, which is good when you're looking at it from a financial POV. But this is not a financial podcast. This is a sporting thing, and as a sporting move, it wasn't for the right sporting reasons. So I'm gonna give it a D.
all right then. DP?
Well, so John Duran, I'm going to give this transfer an E. In my opinion, it was very, very sad that he did that with his career because this guy is just 22 right now. He's gonna be 23 this year, and I just think, okay, maybe you wanted to go to Saudi and I guess I make the money that you wanted to make and come back to a top league. But if you're going to do that, then at least score a lot of goals so that your name is remembered enough so that whenever you're coming back, it's like, okay, this guy is already a proven striker. Let him come back to any big side. He's going to do what he has to do. John Duran in Aston Villa was just an absolute destroyer of a striker. He would score all sorts of goals from outside the box. And we all knew about the guy's qualities. I thought he would be taking over from Oli Watkins. As of right now in Aston Villa, they need a striker like that because Oli Watkins has not been delivering. If John Duran was there, he would have been doing what he needed to do, and I still think he would have gotten a big move. But I was so disappointed when I saw he moved from Al Nassr to Fenerbahce, which I think was mainly because Mourinho wanted him to come there. But then Mourinho is not even a coach at Fenerbahce anymore. So what was that move all about? I don't know. This season, he scored 3 goals. He's assisted twice. Like, he's not living up to the billing anymore. and that's why I'm giving him an E, because I just feel like from a sporting standpoint, like you were saying, Toby, it's just poor for him to just move from Villa to Al Nassr, then move from Al Nassr. I even understand, because if he was scoring goals in Al Nassr, because Joao Felix is playing with Ronaldo, scoring a lot of goals, and we're hearing him now. We're hearing that he's doing things there, even though we all know that Joao Felix has, over the course of his career, he wasn't able to do it anywhere else. He went to Saudi now. He's playing ball with Ronaldo. If John Duran was scoring goals, we would know, because he's playing Ronaldo, obviously.
Mm.
Well, he now moved to Fenerbahce and he's not even scoring that many goals. So it's like he still has time though. And another thing about John Duran is his attitude. I feel like for a player that is so young like that, he has so much pride. And it's like his pride may have gotten the better of him in this situation right now. And that's why I am giving this whole transfer an E.
Mm. All right. Honestly, I agree with both of you. I think it's fair if we just give him a D. Um, and I'm glad that we mentioned that final aspect, his attitude. I think that's been one major reason why he has made those last two moves. Um, I think first of all, leaving Villa was a big mistake. He should have stayed, but him then moving to Saudi at that age, I think everyone just assumed that, you know what, yeah, he's probably just trying to make that bad, take care of his family. But then the manner in which he left, not even staying for more than a season, did not make any sense. And then prior to him going to Saudi, he left one of the top five leagues in Europe, in the world, arguably. And then you're coming back to Europe and you're going to one of the leagues that is trying to get into that upper echelon of top flight leagues in Europe. I think it was a bad move, definitely. And I mean, according to Sky Sports reports that I listened to a couple of months ago, there's no way back for him at Al Nasser. You know, one of the issues he had at Aston Villa was his attitude when it comes to training. Coming in late as well, that was a problem. At Al Nasser, it was more of issues regarding um, personnel relationships, the way he speaks to people, his general conduct. And obviously, I think him not wanting to work as hard on the pitch because for Al Nasser, they already have Ronaldo, someone who they've always built their teams around. They can't have another person in the team who's not going to be tracking back and working hard. So yeah, I know that there's no way back for him at Al Nasser, but I wonder what the future is going to hold for Jean Duran. I wonder where it's going to be next season. Toby?
The producer said he vexed Ronaldo, and I think it was really funny because when it was coming out that he was going to Al Nassr, everyone was like, "No, we need to let him go. He should be able to go. Don't criticize him. He gets to play with the goats, his goats. He gets to play with Ronaldo. That was supposed to be a big selling point for him. He wanted to play with his superstar, the guy that he looked up to, and
Mm.
then he fell out with Ronaldo. Come on now, what we thought like it was just straight all about the money.
I didn't even know he fell out with Ronaldo. But that may have explained why he moved to Fenerbahce though.
Mm-hmm. 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 Exactly. But yeah, that's it here on the TME podcast. We just ranked the top 10 most expensive signings in football in January 2025. Big shout out to everyone who always keeps up with us. Feel free to share your comments with us in the comment section. And yeah, look forward to our next episode where we'll be discussing uh, who should be the next manager of Manchester United. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe.
If